I come acknowledging that we have sinned against the people of Jamaica.
Forward to the avenue today, we will be looking at Prime Minister Andrew Holness budget presentation. Some of people in this one, honestly, presentation is one of the longest I've seen for this good while, and is one of the worst. I don't know if I did have too much of an expectation for this one, but Mr. Holness, you need to check yourself, sir. This budget have nothing for us, the people. You are just flaunting the National Housing Trust, which is Michael Manley Foundation, and yet still you have no respect for Michael. Just check the whole budget presentation. The biggest forward you have in the presentation is when you mention Portia and Michael name, bro. Honestly. So, my people, that is my objective still, because in this I know hear him speak nothing tangible about corruption, and I know hear him speak nothing about the Cubans and the doctors and nurses that serve us from Cuba out here. So, this budget debate to me is nothing but flop. What is your thoughts and views on it still, my people? You can leave your thoughts and views in the comment section and let us have that discussion. And in the meantime, if you are new here, well forward to the avenue. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the avenue. Let's get into it and hear what the Prime Minister got to say in his worst budget presentation.
Jamaicans, known and unknown, who work tirelessly to keep this country moving forward. Your dedication is the backbone of our progress, and the plans I present today would not be possible without your hard work. I am especially mindful of the voices of the people, whether spoken in the community meetings, shared through letters, emails, and WhatsApp messages, or expressed on social media. I hear you. I value your concerns, your ideas, and your hopes for our nation. My government remains committed to serving you with humility and purpose. At this point, Madam Speaker, I want to reference a letter that I received from a member of the public. I can't say where I received it, because whenever I go out into the public, persons literally put envelopes in your hand and they say, please read it, Mr. Prime Minister. And I always ask them, do you have your name on it? Do you have your telephone number? Well, this letter, Madam Speaker, I could barely make out what was read in it. And I had to pass it to my chief of staff and to someone else to say, please read this and give me a sense as to what the person is saying. But what the person was saying, Madam Speaker, they were relating an incident they observed with a blind man going on a bus. And an unfortunate incident where this blind man was denied access to the bus. And the person was writing to say, Prime Minister, please ensure that our disabled community is protected. It was not in the best language, and pardon me if I say that the writing was closer to hieroglyphics. But it was the thought that counted, that the person took the time to write this letter, to send it to me for my attention. And I want that person to know, wherever they are, that we read the letter and we're going to ensure that our public services pay the respect and give the access to our disabled community that they deserve. Madam Speaker, I stand before you today filled with immense pride as we reflect on the extraordinary progress our nation has made. The achievements are not just incremental improvements, they are historic breakthroughs that have placed our beloved nation in the strongest economic position ever since gaining independence. The numbers do not just tell a story of improvement, they tell a story of transformation, of an economy that has overcome decades of instability, uncertainty, and crisis to achieve a level of stability, strength, and resilience that Jamaica has never before experienced. Madam Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition and the Opposition spokesman on finance in their presentation attempted to whitewash their record and suggested that analysis of the country's economic performance does not go back far enough to do justice to their contribution. I do not believe they can complain if we start at independence. There are several generations of young people who do not know our modern economic history. There are generations of middle-aged and older Jamaicans who experienced the history but did not quite understand it or have forgotten about it. Then there are those who were the architects of the destructive past. Some quietly and privately admit shame over their actions, but some still try to justify their actions and absolve themselves of responsibility as they battle for your mind. I don't like to dwell on the past, but I find myself having to correct the problems of the past while at the same time dealing with the current challenges and creating new legacies for the future. We cannot lose the battle for the minds of the people of Jamaica. Otherwise, we are at risk of having the people who made the mistakes of the past repeat them. Madam Speaker, let us examine the facts. Let's start with inflation. The table now being displayed shows that the average annual inflation under my administration has been 5.5%, the lowest under any administration since 1972. This is within the inflation target of 4 to 6%, despite the effect of global inflation resulting from the post-COVID supply chain shocks and geopolitical conflicts. Without the post-COVID inflation spike, we could safely project that our average inflation rate would have trended around 4.3%. The period of highest inflation in Jamaica's history was under the PNP administration of 1989 to 2007. During that period, inflation averaged 18.5% per year. Listen to this, resulting in cumulative inflation of 2,249%. A better way to understand it, Madam Speaker, is that in 1980, a loaf of bread cost less than $1. In fact, it costs about 50 cents, somewhere around there. But in 2007, it cost $130. You know how much inflation that is? I'm afraid to say it. I'll leave it up to a smart economist, young economist, to tell us the inflation. It is embarrassing to say. Cumulative inflation in the United States during the same period, 1989 to 2007, was 71.5%, or 2.9% per year. In 1992, Jamaica's inflation rate was nearly 80%. So in 1 year, in a single year, Jamaica had more inflation than the United States had over the same 18 and a half years. Madam Speaker, it is in this period of runaway inflation under the PNP that the starting point of Jamaica's economic woes can be identified. Madam Speaker, our current annual rate of inflation is now down to 4.4%, at the lower end of the Bank of Jamaica's target range of 4 to 6%. Through well-managed fiscal and monetary policy, we have brought inflation back down to sustainable levels. My administration has instituted a robust policy of inflation targeting through disciplined monetary policy of the independent central bank, supported by responsible fiscal policies of the central government. We must not allow the failed policies of the PNP to destroy the gains we have made in managing inflation over the decades. Let's look at job creation. Madam Speaker, let us look at the unemployment rate. When the PNP left office in 2016, the unemployment rate was 13.7%. Now the unemployment rate is a historic low of 3.5%, almost full employment. In 2016, the youth unemployment rate was an alarming 32%. Now it is down to 11%. Since 2016, we have created 253,000 new jobs. That's an average of 28,000 new jobs per year. The last PNP administration between 2011 and 2016 created an average of 15,000 jobs per year. Our rate of job creation is nearly twice that of the PNP. Madam Speaker, these are not just statistics. They represent real jobs impacting people, families, and communities. Young people who were once left out of economic opportunities, they now see the door of opportunity opening. Mothers and fathers who struggle to make ends meet are now securing stable employment. Jamaica today has the strongest economy since independence. Jamaica has a bright future. We are not going back to the failed policies of the PNP. Madam Speaker, let's now look at the exchange rate. The table now being displayed shows that during the past 9 years, the Jamaican dollar has depreciated by an average of 2.9% per year relative to the US dollar. This is by far the lowest rate of currency depreciation under any political administration since independence. By contrast, Madam Speaker, the dollar depreciated by an average of 8.5% annually under the last PNP administration. And the worst currency depreciation took place under the PNP administration of 1989 to 2007. When they assumed office in 1989, the exchange rate was 5.51, that's $5.51 Jamaican dollars to $1 US. When they left in 2007, the dollar had fallen to $70.41 to $1 US, a whopping 1,178% depreciation. Madam Speaker, it is this period of foreign exchange volatility under the PNP that is the starting point of Jamaica's economic woes. Jamaica today has the most robust and transparent foreign exchange market in the region and the most stable FX environment since our independence. This stability did not happen by chance. It is the product of sound fiscal and monetary policies. Increased investor confidence and a growing economy that is attracting capital rather than creating capital flight. We must never allow the failed policies of the PNP to destroy what we have built. Madam Speaker, an important factor in achieving sustained currency stability is the country's balance of payment. The balance of payment is like the country's current account. It's our income statement with the rest of the world. It tracks the money flowing in and out of the country from trade, services, and remittances. If the money coming in from exports of goods and services and remittances exceed the money going out to pay for imports of goods and services, the current account is in surplus. That's a positive. And conversely, if the outflows exceed the inflows, the current account is in deficit. Madam Speaker, in 62 years since independence, Jamaica has recorded persistent current account deficits. There have only been 5 years in which we recorded a surplus, and that was in 1963, in 1993, and in 1995, and in that year we had a minor surplus. However, in fiscal year 2022-2023, we recorded a surplus of 1.9% of GDP, and in fiscal year 2023-2024, we recorded a surplus of 3.1% of GDP. The graph now being displayed shows the quarterly current account balances since 2012. It shows that we have recorded a surplus for 7 of the last 8 quarters under this administration. So we are well on track to achieve our 3rd consecutive year of a surplus in the current fiscal year. Jamaica today has the strongest economy since our independence. We are not going back to the failed policies of the PNP. Madam Speaker, our net international reserves now stand at a record high of $5.5 billion, representing 29 weeks of goods and service imports. This provides Jamaica with a crucial buffer against external shocks. In the past, we lived in fear of global financial crises, natural disasters, or commodity price swings that could send our economy into turmoil. Today, we stand prepared and protected with reserves that give us the confidence and security to navigate the uncertainties of the global economy. When my administration took office in 2016, the NIR was less than half what it is today. We have increased the NIR by 131%. And we have done so despite facing the worst global health and economic crisis in 100 years. Jamaica today has the strongest economy since independence, and we will not allow the PNP to have a party with our rent money. Yes, we will not allow the PNP to party with our rent money as the Minister of Finance. Indeed, I have never heard a Minister of Finance make a more apt characterization that the NIR is literally your rent money. And we can't allow anybody to play with that. Madam Speaker, perhaps one of the most remarkable indicators of our economic transformation is our debt to GDP ratio, which has fallen from unprecedented levels. When my administration took office, the debt to GDP ratio was over 120%. It is now approximately 68.7%, and we are on track to meet our target of 60% by March 2028. It is important, especially for young Jamaicans, to understand the roots of our debt crises. Jamaica faced 2 major periods of debt distress. The first, from the 1970s to the late 1980s. And this was driven by two global oil price shocks, a failed experiment with democratic socialism, a global recession that slashed bauxite revenues, and hurricanes Allen and Gilbert in 1980 and 1988, respectively. The second period of debt distress, was from the 1990s to the late 2010s. And it stemmed largely from the PMP's policy during the FinSAC era, which collapsed financial institutions, wiped out the business class, and triggered a prolonged recession worsened by the 2008 to 2009 global financial crisis. In the mid-1990s, Jamaica faced a financial sector crisis, which resulted in the collapse of a number of financial institutions. The financial sector meltdown was not caused by any exogenous, meaning outside shocks or global crisis. In fact, the US, our major trading partner, had robust growth in the 1990s, averaging 3.4% per annum. This was purely caused by bad government, bad policy choices, and poor superintendence of the economy. Listen to me clearly, members. FinSAC was a homegrown domestic crisis wholly caused by the PNP, for which we are now only just recovering. Our debt to GDP prior to the advent of the FinSAC crisis was 72%. The government at the time established FinSAC to bail out the collapsed financial institutions. This bailout cost the country 42% of GDP. In other words, 42% of what we produce in any 1 year, we had to take it to pay for FinSAC. By way of comparison, the US government's bailout intervention during the global financial crisis of 2008-2009 was only 9% of their GDP. So you see the magnitude of the scale of FinSAC relative to the size of our economy. Within 6 years after the establishment of FinSAC, our debt spiraled out of control from 72% of GDP to 130% of GDP, almost doubling. That caused interest costs alone on the debt to consume almost 70% of tax revenues. So just the cost to pay for the debt, the interest, at one point cost us 70% of all the tax revenues that we collect. If you add public sector wages to that, and other things that you have to pay for out of tax revenue, then you basically would have no money left. You would have no money left to fix roads, no money left to build schools, no money left to repair clinics, no money left to pay for water. So if you ever wondered, if you ever wondered why we have so much infrastructure that has been left unmaintained and now falling apart. If you ever wondered why things are the way they are. If you ever wondered, Madam Speaker, it's an important point that needs to be made. Because the average man listening might, in the background of the shrill of noise that we hear, this might go way back in their memory. And they see a pothole emerge in a road, And they wonder, why doesn't the government fix that pothole now? But they will never stop and reflect on a very important point, Madam Speaker, that when this road was built 30 or 40 years ago, what should have happened is that there should have been a reserve maintenance programmed into the budget, matched with what they call the engineered life of the road, that as a little crack emerges, out of the revenues that you have, you go and you use some tar chemical and you seal that crack. So no pothole appears. But that road that you are looking at now, that the potholes are all emerging, they weren't maintained. And the reason why they couldn't be maintained is because we had to take almost 70% of our tax revenues to pay for the bad policy choices of the PNP during the 1990s and FinSA. I want Jamaicans to understand that lack of maintenance accumulates. Lack of spending on infrastructure amounts to what is called disinvestment. So you can build a hospital, you know, but if you don't maintain a schedule of maintenance, the value of that hospital declines, depreciates.
From the Avenue, this is all for now, my people. What is your thoughts and view on all of this? Leave it in the comment section below. And if you are new here, welcome forward to the Avenue. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Avenue. I'm out for now. Catch you in the next one.